Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be about a drink that I make that is called kombucha. Kombucha is a pressurized drink. In other words, it's carbonated. It's like a soda pop or champagne. And in fact, the carbonation can build up to quite a bit. And you don't want to be making this stuff in any kind of unreliable containers. In the past, I used to make soda pop or root beer or champagne in beer bottles that I had capped off with a beer or soda pop capper. In those most instances, nothing bad happened, but a few times those bottles blew up because they got overpressurized and they made a big mess, and I suspect if somebody had been sitting next to them, they would have got hurt. So I don't do that anymore. Now I only use yellowtail bottles. Yellowtail is a sparkling wine or champagne, depending on what you like to call it. And these bottles are rather unique. First off, as a champagne bottle, it's made out of very thick glass, and it has this indentation in the bottle called bunt. That's kind of like an arch in a masonry building. It adds strength to the bottle, and a very unique feature of these yellowtail bottles is they have a reusable champagne cork type cap. If you make wine as a hobbyist or beer or anything, and you go to looking into buying bottles, just a plain old wine bottle will cost you about the same as what a bottle of yellowtail costs, and you don't get the champagne when you buy winemaker supply bottles. These bottles work in a very simple way. This is one that I've taken the label off of, and I need to tell you that when you take a label off a bottle, the only way that I found to get the thing off is to scrape it with a knife to get all the paper off, and then to soak it in some ammonia water, or I just put ammonia on a wet sponge and I'll wipe it with the ammonia until I can scrape it again and scrub it, get the outside clean. Getting the inside clean will take much more than a drop of dish detergent and some water and shake it up. Anyway, here we go. I'm going to demonstrate this cap for you so you can know why I like these so much. And I have never found a system like this on any commercially produced champagne ever. Yellowtail, and it's very good. I like the champagne, and you know, I'd drink the yellowtail all day instead of drinking kombucha all day, but I'd be taking naps all day with kombucha. That's not a problem. If you notice, it's got a red center. That's because this cap is in two parts. It's just plastic. The black part acts as a retaining ring for the red part, which acts as a gripper, and I'll show you how that works. You pull it up, it exposes the red, which allows you to pull it off. I don't know if you can see inside there. Let's see, put it by where the camera's focusing. But that still smells like kombucha. Well, anyway, when you put it back on, all that's required is that you kind of give it a spin as you're pushing it on. Now sometimes they don't want to hold, or they don't want to go all the way down, and I just take and hit them. That's it, and it's on there. I have had my kombucha get so overpressurized that it has blown the top to where it was a little bit cockeyed like that, and there would be a big sticky puddle underneath it, but I've never had one to blow the top completely off, and certainly you're never going to get it so pressurized that it blows the bottle up. Safety first. Anyways, let's get started on making our first batch of kombucha. Alright, I've heard from several people that if you're going to make kombucha, you need to make it from black tea, or at least that the best tea for kombucha is black tea. I don't even know what black tea is, but I know from doing some research on the internet you can use green tea or black tea. I just use these very, very inexpensive Lipton iced tea 1 gallon bags. And I always fill my bottle up with water from the hot water heater. The inside of the hot water heater is lined in fiberglass, I do believe. And that's a good thing, because they say you should never let your SCOBY touch metal, and I suspect it's best that you don't even make your tea in a metal container. And that being the case, I can't boil this in a glass jug. But I get the water out of the hot water heater, just drop in my tea bag, put the lid on loosely, and then just take it out and set it in the sun and leave it there until I feel like bringing it in. Here we have our tea brewing in the sun for our kombucha. If you notice, the jar is not all the way filled because it's a 1.5 gallon jar, and I've only got a 1 gallon tea bag in there. Now, I fill my jar from the hot tap on my sink, So the water's already hot. It doesn't have to stay out here very long at all. But even if I was to fill it with cold water, it would eventually brew. You don't have to bring it in at any certain time. You can put it out early in the morning and then bring it in at night. But it's good to bring it in while it's still hot, because it's a lot easier for sugar to dissolve in hot tea than it is in cold tea. After bringing the tea in, while it's still warm, we're going to go ahead and add right about a cup of sugar. Now, if you like more sugar than that, you're welcome to add more sugar to that, because this is a rather dry drink. Dry meaning not sweet. But having it hot when you add the sugar makes it really, really easy to get the sugar to dissolve. And you're not going to, if you feel this is still really hot. It's above body temperature. You know, the way your body works, when you get a bacteria or something that makes you sick, your body temperature elevates in order to kill the bacteria. Well, if this is above body temperature, normal body temperature, then if you put your SCOBY in there, it's going to kill it. So you have to wait until it goes down to a reasonable level. It can still be warm, but you don't want it to be warmer than your body. So somewhere around 85 degrees, probably good starting point. We are now going to discuss what you actually need to make kombucha. And without making this sound a whole lot more complicated than it is, mostly you're just going to need things that you probably already have around your house. I went and purchased a 1.5 gallon jar simply because it had this spigot on it, and I thought that would help me in the bottling process. But it's so slow that I finally figured out I've got to take this, pour it into something easier to handle, and then just simply use a funnel to put it into the bottles. When I finish bottling up a batch, I normally have about this much left, maybe a whole pitcher, even might be some in here. And if I got just one bottle to fill, I will fill it with a spigot, but in general, we don't use that. Now, something that you're not going to have around your house is the actual biological organism that's going to be necessary to make your tea ferment, and it's called a SCOBY. Something extremely important to know is that anytime you handle a SCOBY, you need to make sure your hands are as clean as you can get them. Wash them very, very good, but do not use soap. Just wash them with water. This SCOBY actually does what a vinegar mother does, as well as it does what yeast does. So it's kind of making vinegar and making wine at the same time. It will not make enough alcohol to actually have any effect on you. But this is what I got from eBay for about $10. This is what has grown over the course of the last year in my jar, and I just keep using both of them. Now, what's in here is actually the kombucha that didn't get bottled from the last batch. This is alive already, and if I pour this into my gallon, guess what? That's about all I really need to do. I could actually bottle that right now, and it will effervesce when it's put into the pressure bottles. I also always add my SCOBYs, even though I don't have to, because it's good for the health of the SCOBY. Now, you may decide later on that you don't want to use this liquid. This liquid is almost all vinegar, usually, by the time I get around to adding it to it, but I don't mind it. It seems to be the kind of flavor I want, and so I always use it. I'm not very good at throwing stuff away. If you like your kombucha to taste very, very fermented, you may want to leave it in the fermentation jar longer than I do. You know, if you leave this for 2 days, it's going to taste very, very fermented. I like to just leave it for a day, but since I had that much of the kombucha already made, and I poured that in there, and I poured my SCOBY in there, and I poured the juice from the SCOBY in there, I'm ready to bottle this up right now. Before we bottle it up, the first thing we need to do is make sure our hands are clean, once again. And we are going to take our SCOBY out, or in my case, my SCOBYs. Let's see where that other one is. He's floating close to the top. And we're going to have to add tea to that. Well, since I'm bottling, I'm going to go ahead and fill this plastic jug up, because it's easier for me to pour it from that plastic jug into my SCOBY container than it is for me to pour it out of this 1.5 gallon jug. Now, if you notice, I've got a glass container. I don't know that that's important, but I really don't think it's a good idea to store this in a plastic container. But if you have to, you could try it, and if you don't have any bad results, then you know it's okay. You're not really supposed to use anything metal when you're messing with your SCOBY, because you do not want your metal to come into direct contact with the SCOBY, but it doesn't mean you can't use metal in the making of your tea. I don't know that that'll harm it. I try not to. Here's where I put my kombucha bottles while they are brewing or effervescing. I'll leave them here for about 3 days before I open the first one, and I keep them in order because sometimes I'll have brand new bottles mixed in with the bottles that have already completed the fermentation process. And so we'll start from this end here is the oldest bottles, and then in the back would be the youngest. But all 6 of these just got bottled right now. The only bottle I have left that's from the last batch is in the fridge. I'm getting ready to get in there and drink it up right now. Now, if you wait about 3 days, the first bottle may not be as fizzy as you would like, but if you're patient and you can wait the 4th or 5th day, then it'll be just right. But you'll just have to go 2 days without drinking any, and that may be, it may take longer for you. Right here, it is right now 89 degrees. So my kombucha gets fermented in a lot warmer conditions than a lot of people's kombucha. All right, with kombucha, you should never ever open it until it's had sufficient opportunity to chill, because the effervescence, which is a very good quality of kombucha, can actually become quite explosive if the drink is at a pretty high temperature. And I don't think it would ever hurt anybody, but it'll scare you, and it'll make a mess, and it'll waste all of your kombucha. So we'll open this. At the very least, you'll hear a pop when I open this, but it may actually come spraying out. So I'm gonna stand back from the camera a little bit. Oh yeah, there you go. Kombucha. I'm gonna drink this one. Now I'm gonna go ahead and open the cold one so you can see the difference, if there is a difference. Yeah, just a faint little hiss. And frosted glass. Can you see that head? That is so good. If I had nothing to drink for the rest of my life but this, I'd be happy. Now, if you do any kind of research on kombucha, you'll find out that it cures pretty much everything from the common cold to potato famine. But I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. I drink the stuff because it's really, really cheap, and it's really, really delicious. And if you compare what's in kombucha to what's in a diet soda, it seems to me that the kombucha would be better than the diet soda. Plus, I can't afford as much diet soda as I can kombucha. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you make some kombucha and you enjoy that too. And as is always the case, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.